This is your host, Naeem bin Mohammad Rafi, and here is your YouTube channel, Zamir Universal. What happened long ago, people have been predicting that the one of the ugliest face of humanity, which you will hear in the screams from coming from a hospital which is being bombed day and night, that we will hear this in the 20th century. And what good is the United Nations and the Security Council or League of Nations, or whatever you want to call it, G7, G20, whatever are your own international bodies, international, like OIC.
President Biden, Mr. Blinken, can you hear me? Prime Ministers and Presidents of the European countries, can you hear me? Can you hear the screams from Shifa Hospital, from Al-Auda's Hospital? Can you hear the screams from innocent people, refugees, sheltering, trying to find a safe place, being bombed by the Israeli attack forces this morning inside the hospital? Hospitals that are the temples of humanity and protection. When are you going to stop this? You're all complicit.
Like you have both in China, you have in South China Sea, you have NATO, you have European Union, you have many groups, you have African Union, you have many countries to come under one umbrella, and the ultimate objective and goal is peace and respect for human rights. What would you call to that person? Would you call or label that person as a human?
Turkey's actions earned global recognition on November 11th. Under President Erdogan's orders, Turkey dispatched 40 rescue vehicles, officially entering the Gaza Strip under the protection of special forces. Israeli forces along the way did not dare to intercept or open fire on the Turkey SH rescue convoy. According to Erdogan's statement yesterday, Turkey plans to establish SH-20 field hospitals in Gaza to provide medical assistance to the injured civilians. Why didn't Israel dare to stop the Turkey SH rescue team? It's because yesterday Erdogan issued 3 directives to Israel. 1. Any fire from Israeli troops towards Turkish rescue convoys will be considered a declaration of war against Turkey. 2. Turkey does not accept any incidents of mistaken bombings. 3. If the Turkish rescue convoy is attacked by Israeli bombs, Turkey will immediately declare war on Israel and decisively carry out a combined air, land, and sea strike without hesitation. Upon hearing this, do you think Erdogan truly possesses great courage? His strong and assertive character as a world leader is evident. The latest updates reveal that Turkey's 40 rescue vehicles have successfully arrived in Gaza and have immediately commenced active rescue operations.
Who bombs and kills the babies, who stops the water supply to a hospital. When you see dozens of newborn babies wrapped in a green little tiny coffin, dead, killed by the Zionists, the Jews, what do you expect? Who is going to love them? Who is going to even respect them? Who is going to see who is the loser? The world is loser because it's lost its moral fabric. The world is loser because it has Sleepy Joe and the weakest president on earth, and calling and living in a dream is a superpower. The world is ashamed.
President Biden, Mr. Blinken, can you hear me? Prime Ministers and Presidents of the European countries, can you hear me? Can you hear the screams from Shifa Hospital, from Al-Auda's Hospital? Can you hear the screams from innocent people, refugees, sheltering, trying to find a safe place, being bombed by the Israeli attack forces this morning inside the hospitals that are the temples of humanity and protection. When are you going to stop this? You're all complicit.
It's despicable, disgusting, and disgraceful to have those world leaders which are present at this very moment. Even I will say this universally for all, not only I will separate any religion or say that the Islamic leaders are any better than the non-Islamic, or Russians are better than Chinese, or Chinese are better than Europeans, or Europeans are better than Indians. World used to think that one of the filthiest, one of the dirtiest, one of the prejudiced most country in the earth is India, where the cow urine is drunk, where the cow dung is wrapped over your body, where you burn your dead bodies, where you have hundreds and thousands of gods. That is the country where in 800 years the Muslims failed to bring civilization, bring cleanliness, hygiene, and equal justice for all. And see for yourself that we have the one of the dirtiest, the filthiest, the person who burned people alive, Narendra Modi, the killer, the butcher of Gujarat, when he was the chief minister in 2002. He was number one in the world as a criminal, as a butcher, as the cruelest person, and his organization RSS. But what do you say about the Zionists, the Israelis? I think even Hitler will shy of and kill himself when he will see the cruelty which has been reigning over one small tiny strip of helpless civilians and bombing their hospitals, bombing their homes, turning them come on the road and ride on their barefoot and walk from the north to south hundreds of miles on the donkey carts or on in one little thing, and they got just few clothes from their total house and belongings to so that they can escape.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम अस्सलाम वालेकुम। ईरान की एयरफोर्स के चीफ अमीर अली हजीजादा, इन्होंने कहा कि हमें अंदाजा था कि ये जंग खित्ते से बाहर निकलने वाली है। अब हम क्लियरली ऐलान कर रहे हैं, हमारी एयरफोर्स, हमारी फौज, हमारी तमाम फोर्सेस मुकम्मल हाई अलर्ट है। हमने उनको हमले और तैयार रहने का मुकम्मल तौर पर हुक्म दे दिया है, क्योंकि अब ये जंग में लिबनान कूदने वाला है, हिजबुल्लाह कूदने वाला है। अब ये जंग वहां पर आ रही है तो ये खित्ते के अंदर चली जाएगी। लेकिन हम क्लियरली बता रहे हैं, हमें नहीं पता कि जंग का मुस्तकबिल क्या होगा, ये खित्ते का मुस्तकबिल क्या होगा, लेकिन हमारे मिसाइल अब तैयार हैं और हमने हुक्म दे दिया है कि अपने मिसाइलों को क्यों अपना रुख कर लें, जो जो दुश्मन सामने आएगा उस पर मिसाइल दागने के लिए। अब ये जो मिसाइलों का रुख है, इसका अंदाजा आप यहां से लगा सकते हैं कि आप सोच लें कि ईरान के अंदर इस वक्त 90 लाख लोगों ने रजिस्टर करवा लिया है कि हम इजराइल के खिलाफ जंग के लिए तैयार हैं। 90 लाख लोगों ने कहा कि हम जान देने के लिए तैयार हैं, और कुछ कह रहे हैं कि फिगर 1 करोड़ से ज्यादा पहुंच चुका है। ये हमने इस तरह का नजारा पहले कभी देखा नहीं। अब ईरान ने जो ऐलान किया है, आप उसको लॉयड ऑस्टिन की कॉल के साथ मुंसलिक करता हुआ देखें, क्योंकि वर्ल्ड पूरा रोक रहा है इसराइल को, वो नहीं रुक रहा। लॉयड ऑस्टिन ने कॉल की है इसराइल को और कहा है कि आप रुक जाएं यहाँ पर, इससे आगे ना बढ़ें, ये जंग नहीं है, ये वर्ल्ड वॉर 3 है और हम सिर्फ इंचेस दूरी पर हैं। प्यूटिन ने भी यही बात की है। उसने कहा कि जो हालात दूसरी जंग अजीम के वक्त थे वो उससे ज्यादा खतरनाक अब हैं। इसी तरह चाइना ने भी अपने तमाम उस फोर्सेस को हाईलाइट रखा हुआ है। और इलॉन मस्क, उसने कहा है कि हमें पता ही नहीं है कि हम खामोशी के साथ तीसरी जंग अजीम की तरफ बढ़े हैं। जब इतने सारे लोग, ममालिक कह रहे हैं कि हम तीसरी जंग अजीम की तरफ जा रहे हैं, तो क्या हम नहीं जा रहे?
The death and the fire and the rain of the Israeli jets, the missiles, and the continuous bombs and tanks. Are they human? Would you call them human? Listen to this doctor from the hospital and listen at the background the cries. Is there any shame? Is there anyone who can hold from the collar this mad beast called Netanyahu, who in the last 15 to 20 years exported from United States to come and the one of the most extremist, cruelest, corruptest person on earth, the which destroyed the two-state solution, who brought the rogues, the drunken, the womanizers, the cruel, the criminals, the robbers from all across the world.
President Biden, Mr. Blinken, can you hear me? Prime ministers and presidents of the European countries, can you hear me? Can you hear the screams from Shifa Hospital, from Al-Auda's hospital? Can you hear the screams from innocent people, refugees, sheltering, trying to find a safe place, being bombed by the Israeli attack forces this morning inside the hospital? Hospitals that are the temples of humanity and protection. When are you going to stop this? You're all complicit.
And forced them to settle and occupy the Israeli homes and converted 90% of the Israeli into settlements and by force took their coastline and built Haifa, built Tel Aviv, built their lines, took their ships, took their railway line, confiscated their newspaper, their aeroplanes, their airports, their institutions, their art centers, their universities, their culture. You call them human. Now you believe why were they burned in incinerators. Now you believe why were they put in the gas chambers. Now you believe that the 10% left, what they have done. See how you call yourself that he is a superpower. The president begging that do not start the Third World War is just few minutes away because you will be eliminated, completely disappear from the maps of the world. Don't do it. Did Netanyahu heard? Did he hear or pay any heed to Joe Biden or his Secretary of Defense, another Jew, or this Secretary of Defense Austin? See him begging not to start, not to proceed. He thought it was just a joke that he will not be attacked by Iran or by China or by Russia or by Turkey or by Yemen or in that, I think, list by Pakistan, by Malaysia, by Indonesia, any Muslim who has.
President Biden, Mr. Blinken, can you hear me? Prime ministers and presidents of the European countries, can you hear me? Can you hear the screams from Shifa Hospital, from Al-Auda's hospital? Can you hear the screams from innocent people, refugees, sheltering, trying to find a safe place, being bombed by the Israeli attack forces this morning inside the hospital? Hospitals that are the temples of humanity and protection. When are you going to stop this? You're all complicit.
Has any shame and believes in God that on the day of judgment, these babies who have died, their cries will catch them from their collars and they will take them with their cries, and God Almighty will ask them, why didn't you hear these cries? Why didn't you see the barefoot women crying? Why didn't you see them Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel looking at the skies? Were you expecting me to come down from the skies? Does our Creator come down? You are the vicegerent. We are the servants of God. We are the sons of Adam and Eve. We are the one who are going to stop and hold the arm of the and twist it and break his both arms and legs. Are we doing it? Now it is started. It is not just the Hamas. When you push someone against the barbed wire as you did it to Palestinians, that gave birth to these freedom fighters. And I think the whole world should salute these freedom fighters, just as those Egyptians who crossed the Suez Canal and they blindfolded the the Israelis, and Golda Meir cried and begged for peace and returned back to get those soldiers back. And she said, my heart broke when I saw the Israeli soldiers taken captives by the Egyptians. She didn't return the peninsula. She didn't serve the Egyptian land confiscated in 67. It did it because of this. Then how do you blame Hamas? When you have a stone-hearted animal, I hate to call him even a human. And look at the Israeli mothers, daughters, wives, sisters begging to get those hostages released. Does he care about that? Look at his own ego. This egocentric beast has destroyed.
Well, is the United States preparing for a war in the Middle East, a broader regional war? Well, it sure as hell seems that way. We have warmongers like neocon Senator Lindsey Graham passing a bill to give power to the president to go to war in Iran, just in case he needs it. We're preemptively doing this homework for him. We're going to get these paperworks out there ahead of time. So will American families be okay sending their sons and daughters to fight and die for Israel or to fight a war with Iran? That's the question. So is the United States heading for a broader regional war? What are the larger implications of all of this? Someone whose sources are impeccable and who has been spot on since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, and of course what's been unfolding in the Middle East, is Colonel Douglas Macgregor. Colonel, great to have you back on the show. Great to see you.
Sure.
So are we headed, you see these moves in the Senate, you see these moves in the House of Representatives, preemptively giving the power to the president, you need to go to war with Iran. Here's the paperwork. We've done the homework for you. Do you think a broader regional war is unfolding, or is this just fluff?
Well, I think the potential for a broader regional war is very, very real. What most of your listeners probably don't understand, or maybe they do, I hope they do, is that people like Lindsey Graham are out there essentially dishing for money. He makes these ridiculous statements, and he and Blumenthal sit down and craft legislation to do what you described, which is essentially, if you want to go to war with Iran, we're all for you. We'll do whatever you like. That means big donors pour money into their political action committees and support structures. They have no accountability in the Senate. They're not in charge of anything. They're not responsible for the armed forces. So it's all nonsense. When there is no accountability, people will say and do all sorts of stupid things. And that goes on all the time in Washington on the Hill. None of those people have responsibility for anything that happens in a war. They just vote for it. They send money and they pay no attention, and then they posture. So let's set that aside for a minute. The problem we have right now is that I don't think we have anybody in the White House. What we have are people in the cabinet like Blinken and Austin and others, and Sullivan, of course, as the national security advisor. And then behind them are lots of people that nobody knows.
Destroyed and started the Third World War, and cleverly, just as they did in First and Second World War, they are now trying to take the war outside Israel, or so-called the stolen land of Palestine, so that the war where this whole devastation is going to occur is not in Israel, it's in one of the close country, and very likely it's going to be Syria.
President Biden, Mr. Blinken, can you hear me? Prime ministers and presidents of the European countries, can you hear me? Can you hear the screams from Shifa Hospital, from Al-Auda's hospital? Can you hear the screams from innocent people refugees sheltering, trying to find a safe place, being bombed by the Israeli attack forces this morning inside the hospitals that are the temples of humanity and protection. When are you going to stop this? You're all complicit.
What is going to happen? Listen to the Chief of Air Force of Iran. Tremble in your travels, in your trousers. When the hypersonic missiles are fired, is there any coast, whether it's Haifa, Tel Aviv, or any along the border or any of your city, it will eliminate, it will vanish, it will evaporate from that sacred land you occupied and you urinated upon. You had your fecal matter spread all over there, your filth, your dirt, and all that done to you by Europeans, by Hitler. You came up to spoil and pollute this holiest land where the father of the prophet is buried, Prophet Abraham. You call yourself a religious person. You are not the Jews. You are obviously not a practicing Jews. You are animals. And animals who can't hear the cries of the babies, who bomb hospitals, who kill civilians, who force them to leave in 3 to 4 hours, vacate the hospitals in there, and then with your tanks and that. And when they kill you and they trap you in their tunnels, you blame them, you accuse them. How dare you do that? What moral fabric you have left? Even Austin begged you not to do this. Twice Joe Biden begged you, sent his secretary. But you egocentric bugger, you didn't listen and you are right listening. You are deaf, dumb. You're not even listening to your own mother and your
President Biden, Mr. Blinken, can you hear me? Prime ministers and presidents of the European countries, can you hear me? Can you hear the screams from Shifa Hospital, from Al-Auda's hospital? Can you hear the screams from innocent people, refugees sheltering, trying to find a safe place, being bombed by the Israeli attack forces this morning inside the hospitals that are the temples of humanity and protection? When are you going to stop this? You're all complicit.
your own father and your own sisters and daughters in Israel who are Jewish, whose sons and daughters have been kidnapped, and they are there in the hands, hostage of somewhere in the tunnels. Whether they are being starved, killed, you don't give a damn. Whether they are getting their medicine or insulin or antibiotics or heart, disease, drugs or blood pressure, you don't give a damn. You have a wife to sleep with, you have a son, and that's all you care, or to hide your corruption cases. Listen what is Austin, how is he facing Kennedy, senator, and see what he's saying, that how America has been cornered. And do you realize that it is not just taking the war outside the Israeli enclave, that cage where they caged for 75 years the poor people who gave them refuge and shelter and food when they came barefooted, naked, starved by Hitler. That's what you did to them. That's the thanks you did. How come you will thank United States and stop this war? Stop an immediate ceasefire. Beg them to release all their women and children. Withdraw back miles and miles away from Gaza. Give them at least 100 miles on each side and the 200 miles limit of ocean. How dare you destroy their boats, their fishing boats, and cut their water supply? Is there any precedent in the whole world where this has been done? With their food, their medicine, their fuel, their electricity. Do you understand when you switch off the oxygen from an incubator, how you gasp without oxygen and die? Those who you were left by COVID understand what the oxygenation and blood oxygenation means, how you die with suffocation, how painful death it is, and you killed.
We welcome the Palestinian ambassador. The Palestinian people have a right to their homeland. Having endured generations of dispossession, occupation, oppression, apartheid, human rights violations that should shake humanity, tonight hell rains down on Gaza. Gaza, the graveyard of children. A child's life taken every 10 minutes. Israel claims to act in self-defense. Carpet bombing civilians, collective punishment, massacring children in their thousands is not defense. These are not justifiable responses to the horrific attack by Hamas on October the 7th. The world sees Israeli actions for what they are: barbaric, hateful, cowardly war crimes. This is a moment of reckoning for world leaders, for the European Union, a test of commitment to human rights, peace, democracy. We ask, where is the protection of international law for every child killed in Gaza, for every Gazan mother holding the cold body of their dead child? Israel cannot be allowed to commit atrocities with impunity. The government says that Israel's actions cannot be without consequences. I agree. That is why the Irish government must take the lead and refer Israel to the International Criminal Court and send the Israeli ambassador home.
The babies, you killed the injured, and you bombed them, and your sniper shot the doctors. Listen to their doctors and die of shame. And all those who support you should die of shame. Listen to Erdogan. Now come and now have war with Turkey, Iran, Yemen, Lebanon, and now Hamas is not alone. And that's what you wanted. Now you wanted to export the war outside. So the greatest damage which will be done, I think the 215 million Americans should know that, will be to America. Because its bases are spread all over the Middle East. They are the one which will be destroyed, and forever the balance of power will shift from so-called superpower to China and Putin together. No more America. Dollar people will go. No more people will have any respect for any American or American passport. See, by supporting an ugly, a filthy, a beast, an inhuman, an animal, a murderer, a war criminal, what you have done. 250 years of hard work of United States of America in 52 states, you have traded in with this small tiny enclave of beasts, animals, murderers, war criminals. What kind of a person you are, what kind of intelligence you have? None. It's you who have deranged mind, and you put the weakest president on earth in there. How dare Netanyahu will keep the war? How dare he will refuse to an American president or a Secretary of Defense? Go back and see what Eisenhower did to them. Go back and see what Nixon did.
President Biden, Mr. Blinken, can you hear me? Prime ministers and presidents of the European countries, can you hear me? Can you hear the screams from Shifa Hospital, from Al-Auda's Hospital? Can you hear the screams from innocent people, refugees sheltering, trying to find a safe place, being bombed by the Israeli attack forces this morning inside the hospital? Hospitals that are the temples of humanity and protection. When are you going to stop this? You're all complicit.
To them and resulted in David Accord. Go back and see what Lyndon Johnson did. They all had the courage to say no. No, you cannot take Suez Canal. No, you cannot keep the area of Egypt captured. And that's how strong a United States president should be. But when your whole Congress is sold, when your whole Senate is sold, and they get easy money to win elections, then they are their puppy dogs. The puppy dogs will only wag their tail, and they cannot stand. This is why in the last GOP debate of the Republican, you see everyone barking to support a criminal, a war criminal, and condemning the freedom fighters. And that's what it is. And in this short video, I've explained to you that how they have exported the war outside. Now dare fire, even by mistake, on any of the field hospitals Erdogan has sent, or food convoys, or water tanks. Dare it. And now then face the Turkish jets, hundreds and thousands of volunteers, 100,000 people have volunteered in Iran to come and fight you. Already 100,000 in uniform from Yemen, they have come to fight you. Imagine that for one Zionist, when you are surrounded by so many, hundreds and thousands of people in arms to give their life, what are they going to do? They're going to make small pieces. And what will you do? You run away. You will take your wife and son. You won't be there. So would be your defense minister and most of your cabinet. The first plane you will take, and just like in Afghanistan, you will have your exit, and you will let those real religious, gentle Jews who had every right to be respected and live in there, and you will leave them alone to die. Why should they die? And inshallah, by the grace of Almighty Allah, they won't. Because it's haram. It is forbidden in Islam to kill women and children. And that's what you will do, you coward. And with this word, I will stop and let this man not win. This stubborn, egocentric person, I think, should be arrested immediately, put behind the bars, and if possible, tried and hanged. यूनिवर्सल टेलीविजन को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें, उसके बाद बेल बटन पे क्लिक करें और अपने कमेंट्स के सेक्शन में अपने कीमती जो ख्यालात का इजहार ज़रूर